Well, welcome back to our second session on servant leadership. Today we're going to look at what a servant leader does. And last time we looked at some of the characteristics of a servant leader and some of the advantages to that model of leadership. So let's just get back into it, okay? So what do servant leaders do? In addition to having foresight and being models of good stewardship, servant leaders devote themselves to serving the needs of the organizational members, meeting the needs of those they lead, developing employees to bring out the best in them, coaching others, encouraging them to use self-expression, facilitating personal growth, and listening well to build a sense of community and joint ownership. They are true encouragers who thrive when others are moving forward in their calling. So that's kind of a big list there. Let's look at that just for a minute. A servant leader, number one, is going to have foresight and he's going to be a good steward. We talked about those characteristics. But he also serves, he develops, he coaches, he encourages the use of self-expression. In other words, don't keep doing it the same way it's always been done. Be yourself. He facilitates personal growth. He listens well. And he builds a sense of community and joint ownership. Think about how that contrasts to the command and control style of leadership. It's two opposites. Servant leaders are effective because when the needs of the followers are met, they in turn reach their full potential and as a result perform at their best. Personally speaking, I know I am working at my best when those around me are happy and reaching their goals. And I tell you, when you're running an organization and things come up and you hear that somebody's disgruntled or somebody, okay, you take that on as a servant leader because what's going on? What's going on behind the scenes? So you want to do your best to figure it out and to find out what's going on and get to the bottom of it because you're not content when that's going on. Old command and control, I'm the boss, that's the way it is. Servant leadership, you want to find out what's going on with that individual. It's an individual focused leadership style. The strength of this type of leadership is that it forces those in charge to think harder on how to respect, value, and motivate people under their authority rather than operating out of self-dominance or self-service and dominance. What are two key factors in servant leadership? Well, I think it's in the name. It's being a servant, it's serving, and it's selflessness. A servant leadership style is characterized by these two factors: serving others and being selfless. Serving others requires a spirit of humility and an attitude of compassion. A leader who embodies those attributes of Christ is a genuinely loved leader who will in turn receive loyalty from those he's leading. Selflessness is an admirable and valuable character trait. The selfless leader is willing to sacrifice his own interests in order to do what is right for those under his authority. Leaders who practice selfless work hard to develop community by listening, expressing empathy, and by showing an awareness of personal situations. One of the greatest examples of this type of selflessness is Mother Teresa, who worked tirelessly among the sick and dying in India. I cannot think of a better example of a completely selfless person. But let's look at what is leadership. How do you define leadership? In the beginning of the first video session, we talked about if you ask 100 executives what is leadership, you could probably get 100 different answers. But a general definition of leadership is that it shows the ways for others, either by example or by advocacy. Leadership models a desired behavior by living out behavior as an example for others to follow. Those who follow will naturally display the same attributes being lived out in front of them. This is like the parent in front of the children. The children will model what is lived out in front of them. children repeat what they hear in the home. Children pick up the attitudes that are in the home. It's the same way with servant leadership. Those that are under you will pick up your lead from the way you're leading. Jesus Christ is our best example of a servant leader. He led by example. He modeled servant leadership. He won the hearts of those around him. He was compassionate. He was humble. Now, we will never meet up to those standards, but it's a goal. And in John 21, 15 to 17, Jesus gave us directions about compassionate, humble servant leadership. And when they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said, "you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." Again, Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him a third time. "Do you love me?" he said. "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." And Jesus responded, "Feed my sheep." Now, what do we know about sheep? They are helpless without somebody taking care of them. Peter was being told to take care of the flock of Jesus. In the same way, we need to overlook and take care of those that are around us and that we're over. We need to feed our sheep. They're not our sheep, they're Jesus' sheep, but you get the meaning. The story in John 13, 1 to 17 easily could have been another teaching about, or teaching of Jesus about how to serve others. Instead, this passage shows us the Son of God wrapping a towel around his waist to wash and dry the disciples' feet. Jesus modeled the behavior he expected his followers to emulate. In the supreme sacrifice, Jesus laid down his own life as an example of how to lay down our lives for others with whom we work and we serve. Paul reiterated this teaching in Galatians 2:20. "I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me." That is at the heart of being a servant leader. It's no longer our life. We're to serve. We belong to Jesus. Let me ask you today, are you a servant leader? Think about that. Serving others is at the heart of this core value. Serving others is what servant leadership is about. And serving others is not a common practice in a lot of places, unfortunately. But it's one of the core values that sets World Indigenous Missions apart. Consider the following as you pray and you think about your attitude toward servant leadership. What personal qualities do you have that might make you a good servant leader? What attracts you to this form of leadership instead of the old command and control styles? And are we not supposed to model Christ in front of everybody, wherever we're at? Do we model Christ in front of those that we're leading? Just some questions for reflection. And a couple of quick action steps for you. When God does give you recognition and authority, and I know as a training missionary you wonder, am I ever going to get out of this program? You will make it. You will make it. And once you get that recognition and authority, use that for the good of others. Don't use it to be a self-serving way to promote yourself. The other action step is each and every day, do all you can do to find more ways to serve more people and more people and more people. It'll be very rewarding to you. Thank you all for your time. May you be blessed in your work for the kingdom.